Good evening, this is Hayden Institute of Education. It's the Diploma of Mental Health, and tonight and next week it's this module, Implement Trauma-Informed Care, CHCMHS013. If there's any issues, then please send us an email, and if you're struggling with anything, just give us a contact us so that we can resolve things as quick as possible. You should get, as far as I know, you should get a recording of the sessions before they go out. So before we do the live session tonight, there should be a pre-recorded session or a pre-recorded module that gets sent to you over the next week sometime, so that you can actually look at the whole module if you need to. Shut that up. We'll just start with the acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, Hayden Institute of Education acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first inhabitants of this nation and the traditional custodians of the land on which we work, live and study. We express our gratitude for the sharing of this land, our sorrow for the personal, spiritual and cultural costs of that sharing, and hope that we may move forward together in harmony and in the spirit of healing. We pay our respect to all First Nation people and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. So just to kick in, this is the housekeeping, expectations of each other, our expectations of you, yours of us. So just to obviously start off, we'll mention cameras on. We're all here together, so we're all learning together in many ways. So we're all in the same playing field. Just use your camera unless there's a reason. Just send a message and excuse yourself if you're off camera. Microphone's off just in case there's any background noise that can affect a few things, especially in the class. Sometimes with audio coming through the speakers, then going into the microphone, and then it's a bit of an echo, so that can complicate things. Class breaks with a few hours of study on an evening. It's we all need a break, usually 7 and 8 o'clock for 10 minutes each. With class participation, when we're interacting and talking, it's easier to put your hand up using the reaction icon underneath all of the video screens. So it's a little heart with reaction. Just stick your hand up and then everybody sees who's jumped in first. That equally is with respect for relationships. Be mindful and kind with your words, respect the opinion, respect the space of other people. We're all learners and in this together. No smoking, vaping, or alcohol on camera. It's a bit like a staff meeting or a TAFE session. We wouldn't be doing any of that in a class, so we don't do it with Hader. That could equally be a trigger for some people. If people are coming along to class and then they see somebody using something that they're trying to give up, even if it's just a stubby or just cigarettes, it's going to be really difficult. Some of the content can be triggering enough. So some of the stuff that we study can be overwhelming. We don't want to add anything else on to frustrate people. And be kind to yourself, most of all. With mental health, when we're studying mental health, you're only as effective as you are strong. So if you're emotionally, mentally, physically ready to take on the world, then you can you'll be ready to look after other people. But if you're exhausted and you can't sleep and you're feeling unhealthy and you've got flu and everything is against you, you won't feel strong enough to take on the smallest thing. So you have to look after yourself, which means make time for yourself. Sometime in the week, weekend, evening, morning, sometime, put back into yourself so that you're ready to do what you need to do all week. Mentioned this next thing last week, and I guess I got it the wrong way around. It's not necessarily about just giving me a 5-star review on Google. It's about feedback from you to Hader so that we can change anything, improve anything that might need improving. So enough people mentioned in the past few months, enough people have mentioned that it would be great to do a set role plays in class. Enough people said that, so we brought them into class and started making room for them here. So your suggestions, your insight is what can change it for everybody and make it more engaging. So I'll copy this into the chat in a minute, and then you can use it. And if you can't find how to do a 5-star review for me, then we'll figure that out. Don't stress about that. It's for Hader. You're doing feedback for Hader. That's what you're doing. So tonight, what we look okay. So tonight we're looking at trauma, legal and ethical considerations of trauma. If you're looking at first aid manual, one of the first things you'll see in a first aid manual is when we're talking a physical first aid manual, when with an injury, the word trauma is described, and it describes trauma as simply a wound. So it's something where physically the body has undergone compression, maybe affected with a fracture, maybe some skin or muscle or tendon, something has been damaged. So we could say that trauma is some sort of wound caused by damage physically. In the same way, when we talk about trauma and we're studying trauma and we're working trauma informed, that's exactly the same. Emotionally, mentally, psychologically, we're still talking about a wound and damage. So when the government education put the course together, I do like to keep looking at this. So this is the training website, .gov.au. When they put the course together, they've said, implementing trauma-informed care, this is how we do it. So we have to present this course like this, and you have to study the course like this. So this unit describes the skills and knowledge required to promote trauma-informed care and to develop strategies to address people's specific trauma needs. Trauma-informed care involves providing services that are informed by the knowledge and understanding of the impact of trauma, in particular interpersonal violence and varying service practice to reduce the likelihood of re-traumatization. This unit applies to work with people with mental illness in a range of community services work contexts. So just to break it all down, the knowledge, yeah, you can know knowledge. There'll be a quiz online on Accelerate. You can answer the questions. There's a million questions to answer in the quiz. There's probably about 23 questions. And you get the study done. That's all of your knowledge. But that doesn't mean it's going to have any effect into how you work. So what we have to show as well is the skills. And in the skills, obviously you're going to be going on work placement. You've got to do role plays. You've got to study how to present the knowledge that you've already got. And there's plenty of ways to do that, but mainly we're talking about the way that we talk with a client and that we talk in a specific way with a client. our conversation skills, our body language, our tone, our the way we dress, everything about us has to be engaging and building a rapport with the client. And you've got to show that on a role play, and you've got to show that in a work placement. So it's the skills and the knowledge. And then there's a couple of things here that working in trauma-informed care, well, if we're working with clients that might have been traumatized, then we don't want to re-traumatize someone. We don't want to say, okay, tell me all about it. That'll help, and have them re-traumatized. It's not what we're here for. We also we have to understand the impact of what's happened to the person. And in this module, it's specifically talking about that kind of trauma that can happen. So out of all of the trauma that people do, that happen to people, there's a whole course on mental health first aid that if people are going through difficult issues in life, then you'll be trained up to look out for them. And that could be absolutely anything, dealing with relationship issues or debt or job leaving or anything like that. These can all build up into trauma. We're not looking at all of them. We're looking at specifically interpersonal violence and how we work with that as a service, whatever service you're in. You could be all working in different services and all dealing with it slightly differently. So when we're talking about trauma, we're talking more than anything about interpersonal violence and how that can have an effect a long time into the future. When we then, if somebody carries trauma for too long, then they can lead into a bunch of different things like post-traumatic stress, which is now mentioned. It's post-traumatic stress disorder, and they've changed it slightly so that it's, I think they're calling it a chronic. That would be chronic anyway, but changing the word slightly every few years. So whether trauma built up is turning into post-traumatic stress, or whether that post-traumatic stress builds up into a specific disorder that can last a long time, or whether it's multiple trauma that can work together. And yes, complex PT, that's exactly what I was mentioning now. Complex PTSD. Thanks, Matthew. So when we've got lots and lots of trauma working together, it's going to be complex. So we're moving into not just trauma, but maybe complex trauma, and then not just trauma, but post-traumatic stress, and then post-traumatic stress that becomes a disorder, and then a complex post-traumatic stress that can become a disorder. So it's all from not just interpersonal violence, but from many, many different things. So in the end, this unit applies to work with people with mental illness in a range of community service and work contexts. It can be heavy going, partly because we've got 2 weeks to look at everything and then we move on. And in some ways, the industry, community services industry, and the assessments we want you to know everything, but we haven't got the time for you to know everything in 2 weeks. So it's almost a taster, really, of what you might need to know. So that's that. That's the training website, and I prefer to look at that in every topic because no matter what, no matter what you see in the learner guide, no matter what the assessment is about, in the end, this is exactly what the module is for. That's what the government wants you to know. So that's that. Next, if you need anything, this is my calendar. So Any issues with assessments, you can book in for sessions a couple of times a month with this. So I'll put my calendar link in the chat if you need it. Yes, dissociation as well. Thanks, Penny. It's massive, unfortunately, and that can be the one of the effects of not just trauma, but a complex post-traumatic stress disorder that becomes chronic, that eventually gets to some sort of dissociation where our body just wants to, or our psychology just wants to shut down. We've had enough. So my calendar there, and Discord. This is how we get role plays done, how we can get role plays done. This used to be for gamers that are doing whatever, like online gaming. Not the pokies, like the FIFA and army games and things like that. So for online gaming, so that they can talk to each other. And we've got a channel on here as well. You've got to register your own account with your own email address. So once you've got that registered, you search in the portal and Accelerate for the invite. So you've got your own account. Then you get the invite in Accelerate. And I think you just type in Discord in the search bar in Accelerate. You get the invite, and then you accept the invite, and it takes you to the rules of engagement, which is terms and conditions. And that is things like respect everyone, privacy and confidentiality, be nice to people, no foul language, respect, don't share answers from any of the quizzes. It is here for people to get help, but that doesn't mean answers are going to get posted in here so that you can just copy them straight into your assessments. We've got LSO on here, so learning support are in. We've got all of our staff coming in at some time, but the idea is that when you need to connect up a role play, trying to book a role play in, you could literally find a make-believe client from in here, and say, hey, I've got to do a 15-minute role play on work health and safety, or trying to support somebody through mental illness, and pretending they're a client. So once you've read all that, you click on accept on one of these, and then it'll take you to all the channels. You're doing Diploma of Mental Health, but that doesn't mean you have to stay in here. You can jump into AOD, alcohol and other drugs. You can do community services, youth work, the short courses. The people doing the short courses, they are doing the same module as you. They just do the modules one at a time. So you might find that there's somebody in here that wants to do the same role play as you, but that module is the only module they're doing. So they've got the same assessments, they're just doing them one at a time. So yeah, that's helpful, and that's Discord. This is the learner guide for this module. There's a different learner guide for every module. Each module lasts about 2 or 3 weeks, and this is the one for this week and next week. So going down to the content, basically, you should be able to follow what we're doing. Like I said, 2 weeks, but they've got around just over 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks worth of work there. If you miss a session, or if you get lost, if you don't understand me, if the internet drops out or anything like that, you should be able to catch up somewhere and follow on and figure out what you've missed with that. These learner guides are all in resources. If you can't find them, just ask me and I can give you this straight away. Save you go looking around for it while you're not quite sure where you're going in the portal yet. So we might have a look at that a little bit more in depth later. I'm going to jump back into PowerPoint for a while and get a few videos and slides done. So looking at trauma-informed care, we'll have a look at that video in a sec. What is trauma? It's literally events, situations, circumstances, physical or emotional impacts. All of these people are involved. So it's if you can imagine an event happening with no body, no person there, nobody, no mental health problem is going to happen if there's no person there. Even if it's just me that's there, I'm going to be affected by something. If there's more than one person there, it's going to have a cumulative effect because more and more people are there. So events, situations, circumstances, physical or emotional impacts, relationships. Relationships are amazing. Relationships make the world go round. Relationships heal us, and they can be toxic and they can ruin our lives. So it's a mixture of everything. Let's have a look at that video. I'll just to start off. Mesa, what were you going to say? Yeah.
Yeah, I would like, hi, Wayne. My name is Maizan, and so I've been missing some videos, but I am here now. I have a question
Hi.
here. I did
Yeah.
some, before I become a registered nurse, and I did some placements in a psych ward, and
Yeah.
I saw a couple of the clients going to seclusion. So, like in a situation, a client going for seclusion, the psychiatrist doing the prior role with the psychiatrist, yeah, before they go into
Yeah.
seclusion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I missed the question there. I'm sorry. I thought you were building up to something else. Could you repeat the question for me?
My question is, um, I did a placement in a psych ward when before I became a registered nurse. And
Mm,
I saw in the psych ward, I saw like a client going for seclusion. So in cases before they go into seclusion, do they have like a the prayer role with the psych nurse and the psychiatrist beforehand, or they do after that?
there'll there'll be a massive preparation before going into seclusion. A lot of times, like you've got to do a work health and safety just to do that. So there'll be it's almost like you're working in a manufacturing industry or a warehouse. You've got to do a whole risk assessment for, and it gets normal. Like you
But
might be
also,
doing one every day or every other day, but yeah, you've
but
got to
al-
do all the paperwork first.
but also it's highlighted the abbreviations of the documentation as well, isn't it? Because everything have to
It,
be
it
documented for we to be able to treat it, psychiatrists to be treated in a proper manner. Is that right?
yeah, yeah, everything's got to be done in protocol. So
Okay.
policies, procedures, and protocol. They're two different psych wards might do it slightly differently.
Yeah.
They might be wanting the same effect and the same outcome, but they might be doing it slightly differently.
Be-
And they might both have a risk assessment to do, but they would look very different. One might be on paper, one might be in on the internet or on your phone. One might take literally 10 seconds to fill out. A lot of it might be pre-filled, and then another one might take a few minutes.
Is
So
exactly the sorry. Um uh it is exactly the same procedure like in a way before we're doing the CTB because CTB when they moderated and depressed and also they have the assessment before they have they're doing the CTB. Is that right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There'll be an assessment before everything. So whether that's a risk assessment that needs to be done, or whether it's an intake assessment to be done, Even a exit assessment needs to be completed in the end, and obviously they might all be very, very different. So I've just got a video to show. Let me check how long it is. And we'll come back. We'll come back after this video, and it's 4 minutes long. So I'm pasting it. I've copied it into the chat. If you click on it, mute your microphone, and we'll watch it and come back in 4 minutes. I need to start that again. So when I said like a single event could be small t trauma, little trauma, eventually, whether this is all complex from working together or something major does happen and it's like a capital T trauma, like serious abuse, serious for child or adult, major, like a divorce, a long-term relationship, not just a relationship breakdown, but a long-term divorce after many, many years, could be a massive trauma. Experiencing somebody else die is a massive trauma. And when all of the little ones and the big ones all work together, it can be the complex nature of it. It goes way beyond like us trying to deal with supporting somebody's mental health issues. It goes like Maza's been mentioned, the psychiatrist and the psychologist. They're the people that we can refer somebody to, and we can just be there for their day to day and try and help them through life, try and help them through the day when they need some serious support, referrals. And there might be quite a few referrals that we need to pass somebody on to and advise somebody to go to. Because once this is all in place, then the effects that are coming from that, when it's chronic, like chronic over the longer than 6 months, longer than 9 months, that's what doctors are saying. Chronic is quite a few months bedded in. So once this is starting to have effect over a chronic state, the impacts of that on somebody's life, they don't even know why they're feeling anxious all day. They don't even know why they're feeling depressed all day. They don't know why they're feeling paranoid all the time. They don't even link it back to this or the effects or the way it's impacting their life. All they're seeing is right now, he's feeling really paranoid about everything, or panic attacks. And I don't know why. I don't know where they came from. And when we start looking into all this, this is a massive, massive pointer. I'll give you this video. It's only a quick one, but it's very good. It's Gabor Mate. I don't know whether you know Gabor Mate, anyone. He's a legend. And he's got a video. Just like with an abusive relationship there, interpersonal violence. Thanks, Therese. You're awesome. Just like with interpersonal violence, the way somebody copes with it, if somebody's in a relationship with abusive relationship, somebody can leave the relationship, and the way they're coping with leaving that relationship is find another one very similar, because it can feel not safe but comfortable, because something that isn't the same is going to be really, really scary. And I can deal with scary that I know. It's like the better the devil you know than the devil you don't. If you know the devil that you've been living with for however many years, and then you leave that relationship, now it's really scary because the worst fear is of something that you don't know. I know the relationship that I've just left, and I know what that was. So it's even more scary sometimes to go into something you don't know with somebody else, not knowing what's going to happen. Yes, he has. Well done, Penny. Penny obviously knows him. And Gabor Mate has written a lot of good books. So going from interpersonal violence and coping and managing, this is where this point here is where we want to stay with someone. We don't want them necessarily. It would be horrible to know that somebody's going back there, but we can't stop them going back there. Like we can protect them, we can try and encourage them to protect themselves, and we can say that if we know of anybody that's threatening harm to them, then we can report it to the police and would say that to everybody. But in the end, if they want to go back to a relationship that they feel is comfortable for them, that's their prerogative. We can tell the police. We can, if there's children involved, we can inform who we need to inform. But in the end, we're trying to help them literally just deal with today. We can't fix a relationship. We're not relationship counselors, and stop them falling off the other side and going into this by talking to us about something that we shouldn't have been digging into, or by not referring them to somebody that needed to be referred to. So yeah, we wouldn't re-traumatize them, but like I said, maybe a psychologist or a psychiatrist would talk them through it and manage to work through the trauma, like Gabor would with what what's happened to you. Just tell me. So working through this with legislation and ethics. Obviously, I mentioned first of all that with all this, we're bound by, first of all, confidentiality, obviously, but then we're also bound by mandatory reporting. Like those two things almost like control our head and our focus. We're bound by confidentiality, so we're not going to repeat anything, but we're also bound by mandatory reporting, so that if we do hear anything, then we're going to have to pass it on if somebody's at risk of harm. As well as that, there's all of these other things. So just like any other job that you've ever worked in, we're still bound by work health and safety. So it's still got to be, it's still got to help. It's still got to be a healthy place that we go to work, and it's because it's a public service. It's still got to be a safe place to bring a client into, which means that if somebody's showing up intoxicated or with a mental health issue going on, if they show up at a service, then we might need to call the police to protect all the staff and the other clients, while we still want the best for the client that's come with a mental health issue or a AOD, intoxication. We want to help them, but in this situation, we won't be able to because they're putting people at risk. So it's got to be a safe place for everyone. We've mentioned codes of practice and policies before, so we have to follow the way our agency does it. We might have been at another agency that does it slightly differently, but now we've moved to this agency, this service does it slightly differently. Some people might vet clients outside, and the only clients that come into the building might have already been assessed as safe or ready to come into service. And then another agency might let anybody in, and then they get assessed eventually after chatting with somebody, really low key, really calm. It's not that one's right and one's wrong. It's just that we have to work with the codes of practice that our agency is telling us. Like one agency will do for mandatory reporting. One agency, sometimes you might have one person in the industry that takes all of the mandatory reporting cases and passes them to police or child protection. Like that one staff member will do all of that. Cool. We don't have to do anything. Or then you go to another agency and you've got to do it all yourself. To get them too confused, we're going to get a bit of a mess up if we think somebody else is going to do it, but it's all us. So everybody can work slightly different. With work role boundaries, like we're dealing with mental health issues. If something is beyond us, then we have to know for a start that this isn't what we do. Now, the federal government wants something called, in community services, they want something called no wrong door. So if I'm a mental health service, somebody comes to me and they've got homeless issue, they need shelter, long term or short term. I don't do home shelters. I don't do anything like that. But I have to find somebody that does. Not just give them anything, but I have to find somewhere that I can refer them to that's going to be really, really good. If they can't budget, they need financial counselling, they need $50 Woolies voucher or rent paying. I don't do that. And I have to be able to tell somebody that no, that's not what we do. But once we've finished, I can get you referred to Anglicare, and they're just around the corner. And I can set you an appointment up. I can get you booked in, and they'll hopefully pay this week's rent. When I say hopefully, if they've already been there before me, then they're probably not going to get anything from that service. Maybe somewhere else. So it's got to be no wrong door. If it's an alcohol and drugs thing, we're going to refer them down to a drug and alcohol counsellor, or if it's relationships specifically, then maybe Relationships Australia. So just because they come to me and I don't do that, whoops, doesn't mean that they're going to get a door shut in their face. And also with work role boundaries, when they say, "Oh, I'm going home to my abusive partner. Can I take your mobile number? And if anything happens tonight at 9 o'clock, like that's when they usually come home. Can I take your number and call you then?" Then that's also not what we do. We can give them numbers. It should never just be no. We can give them numbers of emergency places that we can make sure that they call. If there's a danger that could happen, that they're going home to an abusive household like that, then maybe they shouldn't be going home. Maybe I'm going to suggest, no, because that's not what we do, then let's get you somewhere else just for tonight. Just a bit of a break. Just like stop out for the night and live in the shelter overnight. In the morning, see what happens and see if there's anything you want to deal with. We can facilitate a call with an abusive partner, potentially, maybe, but not necessarily. Maybe that's something the police could do with the person that we're talking to. And rights and responsibilities. That, again, is complicated because, yes, they've got rights, but so do we. So do the children. So does our reception people that are working reception. So does the perpetrator of the violence. So in the middle of all them rights, the only real people that can like smooth all that over is either on the one hand the police or a mental health unit. And trying to get in the middle of all that, maybe there's a shelter for the victim, maybe there's short stay foster care for children. There's all sorts of other things that are going on because of all of the rights that everybody has. Let's end it there for a while. We'll have 10-minute break and then come back after break. Recording. So this is the quiz. This is the learning guide going hand in hand. This is the project. With every module, it has to get like reinforced regularly that we have to be reflecting on our practice all the time. There's three modules: PRP, Professional Reflective Practice, which we did a few weeks ago. That's all about reflecting on your own practice. But that's not to say that every single client interaction or case study that we do, we have to reflect on how did that affect us? How did we affect the client? Could we have done it any differently? Could we have put less effort in and got the same result? If we'd done way more work, would we have still come out with the same result? Did the client respond well to what we did? Did we mess anything up with something that we shouldn't have said? Like, all of this reflection needs to be part of everything that we do. So that's that project, reflection and research. So we'll get back to this. So I'll split you up into breakout rooms. 12 people. You probably won't get all of the questions done, but I'll give you some questions to study, find the answers for, and then we'll come back and then we'll feedback and see what everybody had. So if I split everybody up into groups of 3, then that's 4 threes. Then we could have 3 questions each. I'll read down them first because some of them are massive and way too big to try and get an answer for tonight. All good, Joanne? Yes, I'll send you the learning guide. So I'll just read down the questions. Describe peer work in a mental health setting. Hear a lot about peer work, and there's a lot of jobs going for peer workers, which is really, really good. What is the role of a peer worker, and why is peer worker support important? Providing hope to people living with mental health issues or caring for somebody with mental health issues. That's pretty straightforward, that question. Describe the role of a support plan in assisting people with trauma-based mental health issues. In a lot of assessments, you've got to create a support plan. There is a template. There's a template that we use, but for a lot of different clients, you're going to have to build a support plan for them, like to navigate around certain issues. Describe the limitations of a support plan. There are a number of different types and formats of support plans. Describe the advantage of designing and developing a plan in collaboration with the client. That's great, yeah. There are specialist services for people experiencing trauma-based mental health issues. List at least 5 services relevant to your working location. So somebody asked last night, are we meant to give names of real services? Yes, like definitely. Some people were concerned that it's like we're not paid to advertise for them, so we're not going to mention their name. No. If you know a good service, then definitely you mention the name and what they do. That's exactly what you research for. And if you're in, somebody said they were from Geelong. If you're in Geelong, you don't need to know all the services that are going on in Northern Territory, Sydney, Brisbane. No, but in the assessments that you do, you'll need to know a great homeless service, a great financial counselling service, domestic violence referral, things like this. you don't need to know necessarily a good GP, psychiatrist, psychologist, but a name of one would help. Like if you're actually at work, then you might need a good GP to refer people to, a good methadone clinic to refer people to, rather than somebody who is going to go over and get you're going to be able to sell it on the doorstep once they've got it from the clinician. They get the methadone and then they sell it straight away. And some places it happens, yeah, but you don't necessarily want to send somebody there. So you want a good place. You want a good psychiatrist that is going to be understanding of certain issues that the person's already got. There are times when a client may disclose something to you and you're required by law to not keep it confidential and to report it. Identify, yeah, straightforward. Describe the role of codes of practice in providing support to people with living with trauma-based mental health issues. Describe the dignity of risk. Dignity of risk goes hand in hand with duty of care. So duty of care is that we have to provide all reasonable care. Whatever most community workers, clinicians would do, that's the level of support that we give. Dignity of risk is the fact that if they don't want to take our, not advice, because we're not here to advise people, if they don't want to take our support, referral, life goals, or if we're dispensing medication, if they don't want to take the medication, that's their dignity of risk. In a lot of residential places, if they're not willing to take the medication, that's fair enough, okay, but you can't stay here. That's fine. Unless, and then some people are required by law to take the medication, which means if you don't take the medication, then you're going somewhere else, and that's their prerogative. When people are force given medication, that's a completely different scenario, which is not what we get into here. Yes, Meza.
I would like to ask, and so in general, and so sometimes when a patient unable to make decision for themselves, they do have the
Yeah.
power of attorney. So that's classified in the same protocol in a mental health. For example,
Mm,
somebody refusing to do the treatments, but they have the power of attorney make the decisions for them. So
yeah.
would you need to follow what the power of attorney says? So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. So, if somebody's too young to make their own decisions, too not too old, but if dementia's set in, then that's the other end. Too young, under 18, not able to make decisions themselves, or dementia set in. Medication, if heavy medication means that you're unable to make decisions for some of them. Certain mental illness, you might not be able to make specific decisions, and intoxication. So there's five things that you're just unable to make decisions legally. You won't be able to make these decisions, which means for all of them things, if it's a long-term mental health issue, long-term medicinal thing, or long-term dementia, means that somebody else is going to have to make the decisions for you. So a child has a guardian, a legal guardian. Somebody senior with dementia, they might have, like you say, a power of attorney. Somebody that's cognitively impaired, disability, didn't even mention that, so that's 6. Cognitively impaired means that they literally will not be able to make these kinds of decisions, and somebody else has to make it for them. So there's a few things. Dignity of risk, Dignity of risk isn't taken away from any of them, though. So all of them people still have dignity of risk, um, and they can make their own decisions. But the law might come in. Explain the term mandatory reporting. This is a little bit bigger. Um, that should be all right. It's not too big. Working in a mental health support role carries a number of legal and ethical obligations. That's a good short description of some of them. List at least 5 strategies which you could use to maintain professional boundaries with clients. Legislative requirements are an important element of the community services work which you do. Yeah. Describe what informed consent means in the context of providing trauma-informed care is meant to be there. How do you gain and document consent in your workplace? Describe the values and principles of trauma-informed care and describe how you apply them to your work. Describe the codes of practice, policy frameworks, and practice standards which impact your work in trauma-informed care. Okay, that's again a bit of a case study, but it's not massively. Marley is 57. She was sexually assaulted in a violent attack when she was in her early 30s. As a result of the attack, Marley developed depression with severe anxiety disorder. She's socially isolated and finds it extremely difficult to leave her home. And then you just got to answer a few questions about Marley. Describe the stages of change model. How is this model useful in mental health setting? So, yeah, I'm not going to, it's easy. Describe peer work in a mental health setting. That's very similar to the first couple of questions. So I'll split everybody up for breakout rooms. And I need to upload the learning guide so that I can give it to whoever needs it. I'll do that first. Can everybody get into the portal? Like I'm talking about these questions. If you can't see them, then I can like let you screenshot um, my screen. But it does help if you get into them. Um, Sorry, it's just taking a bit longer than I thought. It's better. Okay, I'm just going to put the learner guide in chat. If anybody needs it, then just download it straight from there. There you go.
What is going on here?
Okay, so I've got 3 breakout rooms. I've got Aileen, Brooke, Kim, and Penny. I've got Caroline, Joanne, Kiri, and Yvette. And I've got Maggie, Mesa, Mike,
No, I
and
got Maggie.
Therese. So 3 rooms. Let's do, I know there's 19 questions, but if you do 6 each, then that'll leave that last one spare. So Aileen, Brooke, Kim, and Penny. If you do 1 to 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then Caroline, Joanne, Kiri, and Yvette. If you do 7 to 12, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then Mesa, Mike, and Therese. If you do 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So answer them as much as you can in the time. We'll have 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. It's not important that you get all of the detail for all of the questions. It's more important that you just get each one started to know where you're going to go with it when you've got more time. So like with this one, if you've got 13, maybe a short answer to start you off there and similar there. Maybe you might only get half that done, and then you might only get half this done. So start, maybe divide the questions up. Get as much from each question as you can, and then afterwards, before break, we're going to come back and feed back all the answers to see what amazing answers everybody's got. Yes, yes, Misa.
What happened if I can't get in contact with my group? So can I answer the questions separately or not really?
This is for now. We're going to do this now. I'm going to give everybody a little breakout room. So it'll be a bit like this, and there'll be you and 2 or 3 other people just like this. It's just a smaller room.
Okay.
So there'll be a sign comes up on your screen that says click here to go to a different breakout room. So when you do that, there'll be you and Therese and Mike.
Mike, okay.
Does anybody need to see any questions like on the screen before we go? If you can't get into the portal or something? Yes, Mesa?
Sorry, may I can ask you, can you please repeat again? We 3 of us going to answer which questions?
13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18.
14, 15, 16, 17, and 18.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And We'll do, yeah, we'll go to 10 to. So that's like just over 15 minutes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, yeah.
Can the question be displayed on the screen so that we can see?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all right. And yours was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, wasn't it? So we've got 7. If you want to take a screenshot or a photo with your phone, something like that. So that's 7, 8, 9, 10. Let me zoom out a little bit. Hold on. Yeah. 10, 11, and 12. All right. Kiri, I'm just about to do it now. I'm just going to send everybody the invitation. There we go. Thanks, Kim. I just forgot to press record again.
Right.
But that's fine. Yeah, definitely. So it's saying there, explain. That's yes, you did that. Or just for anybody that's looking at the question, thinking, okay, I'm just going to describe trauma. And describe trauma to a 15-year-old and a 35-year-old. It's not wanting description, it's wanting an explanation with reasons and how it works. And like you said, Kim, impacts. Why am I feeling so upset for no apparent reason? Why am I having a panic attack for no reason? Why is me and mum not getting on for no reason? We haven't done anything bad to each other. So why are we angry and panicked about stuff? So explaining reasons, which is great. So description, that's different. Description is not an explanation. Description is a lot less, which is good. Go on then, Kim.
Do you want number 2 now?
Yes, please.
Key roles of a support plan: promotes safety and stability, encourages individualized care. I've got more description after those things, but I'll just dot form. Supports emotional regulation and coping strategies. Facilitates access to support services. Empowers autonomy and self-determination.
Cool. Number 3, see if we can get all 6 before break. Limitations of a support plan.
I did number 3. I was meant to do number 4 as well, but my internet dropped out.
Sorry, I'm not laughing. That's fair enough, book. No worries.
So I just have kind of like dot points.
Yeah, cool.
Individualization challenges such as one-size-fits-all risks. Support plans may not fully reflect the unique, complex, and evolving needs of individuals with diverse trauma histories. Cultural sensitivity plans may not adequately account for a cultural, racial, or the shape of a person's experience of trauma and healing. Implementation barriers, inconsistent applications. Staff may lack adequate training or fail to consistently apply trauma-informed principles, and system contains overburdened or under-resourced
I'm so confused about what
systems. So hospital social services may prevent full implementation of the plan. Is what I got.
Specialist.
Yeah, it's good.
Specialist.
So you number 4.
Yeah,
Number
sorry, I
4.
didn't get to number 4.
Yeah,
That's all right.
everything from park to what is it, community center?
Number of types and formats of support plans. Describe the advantage of designing, developing, and planning collaboration with the client. Has anybody got that already? No, that's fair enough. Let's do 5 and 6. Specialist services for people experiencing trauma-based mental health issues. List at least 5 services.
Oh, it is on there. So it's a few different things. I said, oh, can you hear me?
I can, Penny.
What?
I can, yes, definitely.
I'm sorry, I wasn't working before. Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. So close to me, I had Mind Apollo.
Okay.
And Park because it's close. There's community therapy in Bandura. Sorry.
That's 3. Have you got any more as well? Or
Yeah, I yes, but relationships Australia.
Yeah, definitely. They will work with people with trauma issues, definitely. Number 6. Is this you as well, Penny? There are times
No,
when a
it's-
client made. Oh, that's fair enough.
Thank
Okay.
God.
So you're required by law not to keep it confidential. Who was this one?
I can answer.
Go on then, Aileen.
Yeah. Legal obligations when the court order or law mandates the disclosure of of information. And for the public interest, the disclosure is necessary to prevent serious crime, protect someone's life, or avert imminent harm. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
So means legal obligations and for the public interest and safety.
Let's have a break now then. 10 minutes and we'll come back and we'll go on to the other group and the other people. Yes, Therese.
Can you tell Penny to turn her microphone off?
It's not Penny. Penny's
It's
mic's
not?
off. We figured it out.
Okay.
Have a good 10 minutes. So we've just done 1 to 6, pretty much, questions. So let's have cool. The CAMS unit. I think there's quite a lot of. There's a few in Sydney as well. All right, number 7. Who was this? Caroline, Kiri, and Yvette. Jump in if you want, Caroline. Describing codes of practice.
Okay, for code and practices, the question says, describe the role of code of practices to improve in providing support to people living with trauma-based mental health issues, and reference the code of practices relevant to your sector or organization. So for this one, I just use my my organization. So for my organization, code of practices play a crucial role in guiding professionals who support individuals living with trauma-based mental health issues this code of practice is ethical. This code provides ethical, legal, and professional standards. Standards to ensure that support is delivered in a safe, respectful, and effective manner. They help create consistency in practice, upholding clients' rights, and promote trauma-informed care by setting clear expectations around privacy, dignity, culture sensitive, and empowerment. The key function of this code is to ensure that workers adapt a personal-centered approach, maintaining professional boundaries, and actively avoid the re-traumatization and actively avoid, they also guide workers to recognize signs of trauma, responding appropriately to the to disclosure, and understanding when mandatory reporting is required. Relevant code of practices, like for example, the one that we use, it's a community service sector in Australia. One relevant code of practice is the Australian Community Worker Association.
So number 8, describe dignity of risk. Yeah, dignity of risk. We didn't really mention much about that this week. We mention it every other week in every other module, but not much this week. Who's got that one?
I can do that one.
Okay.
Dignity of risk is that a person has the right to make the mistakes, right to make their own mistakes. If you don't let a person make mistakes, then they will, you disempower them, because human beings learn from making mistakes. And yeah, so it's a basic, it's a right that we need to make sure that we honor, but then also balance it with the other one.
Duty of care.
I didn't write it down. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
so,
it's good.
yes, the duty of care one. So you got to let them make mistakes as long as they're not going to harm themselves or others.
Yeah, it's
and also it builds their confidence, and also they don't depend with anyone. If they take something, if they do something, if they take risk, they will learn, they will build confidence, and also, they will develop resilience.
Yes, resilience is important. It's I don't know how many parents we've got in the room, but it's like a child. At what point do you let a child get dignity of risk? So like as parents, you've got duty of care, but there's one point where you let your child get more and more dignity of risk and make their own mistakes. When the 2-year-old, you don't let them have dignity of risk around the stove. But eventually they're going to. And then when they're teenagers, there's a bit more dignity of risk. And that's the massive complication around like how much dignity of risk do you give young people, teenagers, clients, as a youth worker? Like how much dignity of risk can you give young people? It's huge. So 9, explain the term mandatory reporting as it applies to the health and well-being of children and young people. Is this Yvette? It looks like it could be Yvette because we've had the other 2.
The strategies, the 5 strategies that I could use to maintain professional boundaries. Yeah, that's what I've done. Is it number 12? I think.
No, number 9.
Yeah, that's number 9.
All right. Yeah. Would you do either 9 or 12, and we'll go back to the other ones if you want, Yvette.
Okay, so the 5 strategies of that I could use to maintain professional boundaries with my clients are establishing clear expectations and also making sure that you you ensure that there's transparency, and that's also number 2 is communicate professionally. Communicating with our clients professionally, ensuring that we use formal languages and structured communications. So number 3 is set limit on availability, such as maintaining balance between accessibility and personal time by defining working hours between response time and all of that. This helps to prevent burnout and reinforce professional boundaries with our clients. So number 4 is stay objective and ethical. So it's also making decision based on policies, guidelines is with our clients. Yeah. And last one is to avoid dual relationship with our clients. So being mindful of situation whereby personal and professional roles overlap, as this can create conflict of interest. So we have to be mindful of that as well between our clients.
That was good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Yvette. So has anybody got 9, 10, or 11?
Yeah, for number 9, it's mandatory reporting. So in summary, for mandatory reporting, it's the purpose of mandatory reporting is to prioritize the safety and well-being and rights of children or young people, ensuring their early signs of abuse or risk are not ignored, and that protective action can be taken swiftly. So for mandatory reporting, it's just a legal requirement that obligates a certain professionals such as teachers, healthcare workers, social workers, and support workers to report any reasonable, suspicious, or disclosure of abuse or negligence involving children and young people. Yep.
Cool. As with any other state or territory thing, excuse me, it's not important, like mandatory reporting is slightly different in all states and territories, only slightly different. It's not important that you know all of the differences in all the other states and territories. It's important that you know your state and territory. So who needs to report and under what conditions, and who would you normally report it to? That's the main things, just your state or territory. Sorry, go on, Therese.
When you were saying children, the reporting of the child, isn't sexual abuse a mandatory reporting?
Exactly.
Through all states, regardless of where you are?
Yes, but it's how it gets reported, and
but it says mandatory reporting, so sexual abuse is mandatory reporting.
Right, I will get into it. So if in Victoria and in New South Wales, then if you were walking down the street and you see somebody being abused, in self-harm, been abusive, or you hear about a child being sexually abused, if you hear about it because you're working as a barista or you're working in Woolies, you're not mandatorily reported to pass that on.
Not in that field.
Yeah,
but
you would be
in the field
in community. Yes.
Yeah, in the community sector, mental health, community services, nurses, hospitals, doctors.
That's right.
Wherever you are mandated to report sexual abuse of a child as
there's when I think South Australia and Victoria, and New South Wales, they have a slightly different list of who is mandated to report. So you might be, I can't think of the list. It's all the obvious ones, but one or two of them don't have to. And then when you transfer that right up to Northern Territory and Queensland, they don't have a list of jobs that are mandated to report, because their ethos is, if you're a good citizen and you see somebody who's been abused, or you hear of a child getting abused,
you report it anyway.
Why wouldn't you? You're a citizen of like Queensland, and you hear about somebody being abused.
Wherever you were, regardless of the state territory that you were in.
Yeah, you would, because that's what you do.
But I was stating, because it said who is mandatory and what is mandatory to report for a child. It's well, sexual abuse is a big one.
It is, yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think that one is question number 9.
So that means we've got 11. 11?
Number 10.
Is any 10?
Yeah. I think in number 10 is, I think in number 10 is the same question that she was asking. Like it depends with the states. Which states are you, and which mandatory requirements are you supposed to report? I think that's number 10. But what are the mandatory reporting are you supposed to report? Is when you are working with young people, children, and family. So maybe it differ with the states. Even when I was doing my assignment, I was just researching for Victoria and Western Australia. It's totally different. Yeah.
So which means that that slight difference is where I was trying to say it doesn't matter about the rest of the states and territories that you don't live in. Just focus on yours and you'll be fine and it'll be right. The only problem is if you work close to a border and you might literally be working with clients from just over the border, then you're going to have to be a bit of a knowledge buff and try and swat up on what they expect over the border. Or you might change agencies as well. You might go from Victoria to South Australia and have a different job, and suddenly it's all different legally expectations. So let's do number 11 so that I can get back to doing a few slides. Who's got Yvette or Joanne? Have you got 11? Working in a mental health support role carries a number of legal and ethical obligations. Describe your legal and ethical obligations to clients living with mental health issues, the families and extended care networks, and your colleagues and other people in your workplace under the following headings. So, a bit wordy, but it's not complicated.
Okay, for this one, maybe I can just answer a brief answer.
Yeah, go on.
Like for legal and ethical obligations, they said you need to list like anti-discrimination, duty of care, and human rights. So for legal obligation, we can get those things under Disability Discrimination Act 1992. That relevant state-based legislation is unlawful to discriminate against the individual based on mental health condition in areas such as employment, education, housing, and service delivery. That's legal obligations. And the ethical obligation, you must treat all clients fairness, respect, and equally. This includes active working to reduce stigma around mental health and ensuring that support is provided in a culturally safe, inclusive, and non-judgmental way. Okay, legal obligations. You have a legal obligation to take all reasonable steps to protect clients from foreseeable harm. This includes physical, emotional, psychological harm. Failing to do so could be considered negligence. Ethical obligations. Ethically duty of care means being vigilant, responsive, and compassionate in your support. This includes assessing risk, respect client's anatomy, and following up on consent and collaborating with other professional and family members where appropriate to ensure client safety and well-being. It keeps on repeating like legal obligations. Yeah, it's just the same. Okay, we have Human Rights Act 2019 in Queensland, and ethical obligations. You are ethically required to upload and advocate for the human rights of your clients. For this, including promoting self-determination, supporting informed consent, promoting privacy and confidentiality, and ensuring that clients are active, involved in decisions about their care and recovery.
Okay. So that's, so we've done 1 to 12 much.
I think we've already done it.
We've done 1 to 12 pretty much.
Yeah, we couldn't do 13 to 18.
Should be able to do, so, yeah, we should be able to get them done next week. We can do them at the beginning of next week. I won't remember, so you can tell me. I need to finish a few more slides. So if anybody needs to leave, then there's legislation, there's mandatory reporting on these slides, and then it goes into change structure and supports for clients. So depends what you need. So I'll just skip on through them because you've looked at a lot of this in the assessments, obviously. Mandatory reporting, as I said, the different states and territories have slightly different expectations because the federal government has said, all right, everybody, this is what we want. You guys deal with it yourself and create your own acts, really. So principles and practices. Obviously, a little bit what Caroline was on about a couple of minutes ago, but working in person-centered, strength-based, certain ways that we work. So we've got to be working in safety, safety for everybody concerned, as I mentioned before. We've got to be culturally competent, meaning that it doesn't matter what culture a person's come from, we should be able to respond to that. If somebody's put off coming to our service because they are from a different culture, then we've potentially been racist. We've potentially got a racist organization because we're pushing people away. And not just racially, but culturally and gender-based, age-based. There's certain agencies that will be geared to certain people. So certain Indigenous communities will prefer to go to certain people. Certain young people will prefer to go to certain people. Aged will prefer to go to certain agencies. But to actually have a service that repels certain people, that's different. And that's not what, I wouldn't say that there's many community services agencies in any area that are actively repelling communities, because they'd go out of business. They wouldn't have government funding, and they wouldn't be able to get local community funding either. So we've got to help. This is what we're wanting to do with the client, trying to give them control, choice, and autonomy. We're trying to give them that back when they might not have had it for a long time. So we're working on the strengths, like strength-based, and the quote that it said at the beginning of the video, that a young person is more resilient when they've got the care and support of people that love them. So strength-based, whether that's they've got personality strengths, they've got healthy community that they can rely on, they live in a supportive community, and then we're collaborating in that as well. When somebody's got healthy relationships, then the beliefs about themselves and the beliefs about the community and the beliefs about life are stronger. So if somebody's got healthy relationships around them, they believe that the world can be a safe place. If they've got unhealthy relationships, because they're the strongest relationships are toxic, maybe, the beliefs about themselves and the world can be that they need to be ashamed, or that the world is a dangerous place, everybody's out to get them, nobody's there to support them, which means that they're not going to trust a service or an agency like us. It's like, why would they trust us? Because the world is a dangerous place and nobody's worth trusting. So we've got to make sure we're trying to just try and gently pull these apart. We're not watching the video. So strategies. Whoops. With when somebody's got a goal to set, or we've got goal setting, we're going to need to strategize and figure out how to get the client to fulfill that goal and implement it. So we're not going to minimize it. We're not going to minimize anything. If it's real, if it's important to a client, then it's important. So that's what we have to do. We're not going to minimize anything. We're going to respond in a positive, supportive way. We're going to propose. Sorry, yeah, Mesa.
My question to you is, most of the time, clients have mental health. They tend to react into a kind of relationship is quite disturbing, and also very not really interesting for a person have a stable, want a stable relationship with them, and so that's because of they categorize themselves at the same level of they are, or they scared to give what that they're scared to give something what they cannot, they never had.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear in that. And the fear builds over time, really, whether that's months, years, decades, unfortunately. So we've got to promote them. We've got to promote their goals. We've got to promote their autonomy. And we've got to, with a lot of people, they'll be coming in when trauma has become chronic, when stress or post-traumatic stress has become a disorder and it's complex and they're living it for a long time. It feels like it's never, ever going to change. We're trying to tell them in tiny, tiny ways that, no, this is not the way it's meant to be, and it's not the way it always has to be. A relationship can end. You can move forward. It doesn't have to be the same as it was. So we're trying to get phrases in that try and change somebody's perspective into, this can change. It doesn't have to be like this forever. Can be a shock to the system because people might not understand it because they think it's going to be forever. So with change management, we've got stages of change, basically, that you might have looked at. That must have been in the later questions. With the stages of change, it's also called the trans-theoretical model. That's what clinicians, psychiatrists, business leaders call it, a trans-theoretical model. And it starts at, well, contemplation is when I realize I've actually got a problem. I'm not necessarily going to do anything about my problem, but I've got a problem. That could be mental health issues, it could be AOD issues, it could be a relationship issue, it could be a career issue, it could be an education issue. I've got an issue and I wish I didn't. Pre-contemplation is when I can't see that problem. Everybody else can see that problem, but I can't. So again, that could be AOD, mental health, relationships. So there is definitely a problem there. It's just I can't see it in this one. Then eventually I get to see the problem. Then I think finally I'm going to do something about my problem. It could be leaving AOD issues. It could be leaving a relationship or a job that I've been frustrated about, that's been frustrating everybody else for years. So now I'm going to look at job interviews, or I'm going to make preparations to leave my partner. And then we haven't got action in there. So we've got pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, then action. They've missed it out. I'm going to sack the person that's done this slide. Stage 4 is action. You've made your preparations, and what are you going to do about this? Like, you've got all the preparations, you've got so many options, but you do have to pick one to make a change. And then once you've made the change, then you've got maintenance. You've left the job, you've left the relationship, you've left the AOD issues, you've made the change, and life is good. Life's better now in maintenance. Relapse could be any of them. Like, the old job calls you back. The AOD issues have reared their head again. The mental health issues have come back, or you've gone back to that person. Relapse is, some people see relapse as a weakness, but it's not meant to be a weakness. When we're talking to people about relapse, about something that they've gone back to, they've only gone back to it because they thought they were stronger than they were. So whatever the thing is that's come back for them, all good, see you, Brooke. Whatever it is that's come back to get them, or they've gone back to, it's because they thought they were strong enough to deal with it. And maybe they'll never, ever be strong enough to take it back on, like whatever it is. And maybe that should be left behind them, but they have to realize that. We can't be the person that tells them, this isn't for you. That relationship is not for you. You should not be drinking. You should not be smoking that. You should not be injecting that. It's going to kill you. Don't do it. That's for their family to judge them and do that and say all that. For us, we're just trying to help them realize that, okay, what have you learned from that relapse and going back there? Did you enjoy going back there? Did you need to go back there just to realize that you never want to go back there ever again? Anything like that. So with specialists and referrals, we've got to identify the referral that we're going to give to them, give them the information, what procedures do we need to email book? Do they need an app on their phone? Do we need to call somebody up and make contact so that we can get them connected with a face or with a person, a name, so that when they walk in, they don't just wander in and say, hi, I've got an appointment, don't know who with. Getting somebody connected before they go is massive to make sure that they get there. If somebody has to go and turn up without a name at some time at an address they don't know, it's really, really, it's scary. So we wouldn't want to put them in that position. And also, just because somebody comes in, spends an hour with us, And within a few minutes, we're thinking, okay, so I need to refer you to them. And then a few more minutes, and that person would be a good referral as well. And then a few minutes later, you're going to need that person, and that person, and that person, and that person. And we can't just give people 10 referrals and leaflets and say, there you go, you're going to need a lot of help. We'd need to filter that down and say, okay, today, 1 or 2 people, 1 or 2 referrals. I think it may be this one is the most important. Would you agree? And let's get you fixed up with this one, and maybe this one for tomorrow or the weekend. And then a few days later or next week, another 2 or 3, and work through it like that, rather than you need a lot of help. There's a lot of leaflets, because it's going to take a lot of time. So we're going to facilitate, we're going to support, we're going to follow up. If we refer somebody on, if we see them on the Thursday and then they've got a referral to attend on a Friday, we might call the referral after they've been and ask how it went. Now, straight away, if we haven't got permission to speak to them, they're going to say, we're not allowed to talk about clients. So we would have already set up the permission information sharing before they go. And then next week, when the client comes back, then we'll speak to them and say, so how did it all go? Was it positive? Were you received well? Was it, did you get anything out of it? Hopefully it went well. Sometimes it doesn't. And then it's just somewhere else. If it's a really, really important referral point, like sometimes it's a psychiatrist or a psychologist that you would need to refer somebody to. And that's the most important thing that they need to do, like psychiatrist, at this point. And we refer somebody on, and they come back and they say, no, I didn't really get on with them. They kept talking over me all the time, so I didn't go back. Like, oh, no. Right. So you still need a psychiatrist. So we'll find you somebody else. And you know that without this person, they're going to end up in a mental health unit because of their independence. So sometimes it takes 2 or 3 tries to get the right service, even though we know which one they might need. Importantly, that's it. So that's the end for this week, and next week it's compulsory treatment. That briefly came up, and seclusion, Mesa. So that's a little bit about next week.
A little bit upfront. Sorry.
So any questions? Caroline, yes.
Okay, mine is not a question. Is there anyone who is willing to do a role play, or who is ready to do a group role play? It should be 005. MHS 005.
MHS 005. I'll bring it up on screen, Caroline.
It's ADV 005. ADV 005. If anyone is ready, you can just come to my inbox.
Hi, Mike. Are you wanting to do a role play, or are you asking a question?
I've got a question.
All right. Yeah.
So, sorry, mate.
Caroline, are you when you said
CHCADV 005 005.
ADV. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. This one.
Yeah.
Let me. I'll just talk to Mike, and I'll bring up the role play as well. What were you going to ask, Mike?
A bit of a statement and then a question. So during all of that discussion, I think I found the questions.
Oh, good.
So between now and next Thursday, ideally knock over those questions before starting the next session. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be helpful.
Just to stay ahead rather than to leave
Yeah.
it all. Yeah.
Because after next week, then we're going to a different module.
Yeah.
So then it's like it's even harder. I can't remember week to week anyway. So a couple of weeks go past and the knowledge is gone.
I can't remember yesterday.
Is this the one, Caroline?
Yes. The first question, first item, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen this. Not for a long time. When where are we at? So we're at 13 at the moment. Yeah, so we're here.
Yeah, maybe most of the people, they are not yet ready to do it. We
Right.
only need, yeah, I think we only need one, because I already have a link, so we only need one. So I'll ask on Discord.
Okay. Let people think about it, and then we can ask again next week. Because let me just see when everybody else might be doing this.